Yep, broke the ratchet.
So we are in final prep for the Rubicon Trail Run. We leave in less than 30 days. We have brand new tires that are waiting to go on the trailer. And we also are installing a couple of lighted whips that are going to be tied in with the trailer systems and mounted at the back of the trailer. Why? Dunno. They just are. One rig that's not going with us on this trip is, of course, the M715. And we have a little catch-up to do. Right around the turn of the year, we did several videos on the axle builds for those, and we want to make sure that they get included in the playlist for later reference. So, the next few videos in our series here are going to be about the M715 axles, the front Dana 60 and the rear Dana 80. We're going to get you all caught up on those. Meanwhile, we still have some more trailer wiring to do, so let us get to that.
We'll start with a nice big wide shot, because that helps April set up and talk about the fact that what we're doing here.
Right.
So, waiting on a few parts for the Dana 80 to finish it up. While we're waiting for the delivery truck, we're going to go ahead and start work here on this Dana 60 that will be for the front of the M715.
And what did that Dana 60 come out of?
This is out of a 1992 Ram W350 pickup truck. 1-ton, single rear axle, Cummins powered truck. A couple things that are a little bit unusual about this axle. The first is that it's a passenger drop, which means the differential is on the passenger side of the vehicle rather than the driver's side. Most modern vehicles are produced in the other configuration. We're going to use this axle largely as it is, retaining the cast-in leaf spring perch for our leaf spring suspension and the cast-in perch over here on the passenger side that is actually really part of the differential housing. So relocating this perch is actually kind of difficult. We'll keep the shock brackets that were off the Ram. Nothing wrong with these. The nice big heavy brackets, so we'll go ahead and keep those. Re-gear to match the Dana 80 that we just did. That'll be a 538. We're going to rebuild the kingpin. This is a kingpin axle. We're going to do a different brake setup, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that when we get there. But we are going to change out these disc brake brackets for some that are a little bit more modern. Rebuild of the outer hubs that have already been dismounted. We're going to replace the kingpin cap here with a high steer arm, and we will ultimately relocate the tie rod up onto the high steer arm with a hydraulic assist system. The first thing we're going to do is start breaking it down to do the re-gear, because to get the pumpkin out, or to get the carrier out of the pumpkin, everything on the outsides of the axle has to come off, because you've got to get the axle shafts out. So that's where we're going to start, break it down, and then hopefully parts will show up, we'll finish up the 80, and then get this up on the stand.
Number safety third.
Yeah.
Quick editor's note. This is the time between Kenneth's shoulder injury and Kenneth's shoulder reconstruction surgery. Roy is going to save his bacon here.
No,
I'm just going to...
No, you're not going to lift it with your bad shoulder. Well, came drained.
I was going to say, maybe I did already drain this one.
Maybe you did.
That came off awfully clean for silicone, so I may have already drained this one.
Yeah, or the person you bought it from already drained it.
Well, since this came off the donor truck,
Oh,
it would have had to have been me. But
you sold it to yourself.
Yeah. Little lever, all of a sudden it moves. Small. Kind of sloppy.
Close enough?
Gonna have to be close enough. 1 1/16.
I don't know. 92 was right in that era when they were changing over to metric.
True.
Not enough surface to grip on.
Not without something happening.
You know, we're not salvaging these. We could just beat on the end.
Yeah. It was just, the position is going to be awkward to beat on it, but I was hoping the puller would be.
Yeah.
UPS made its delivery, so we're back on the Dana 80. We now have our final yoke, and it's time to put the seal and torque it to 450 foot-pounds. So pulling off the old yoke first, and then we'll be on to that. Last time for that one. All right, so putting this together for the last time. First, there's a thrush washer that has to go in up against the bearing. That has to go in first because it does not fit through your seal. So that has to be in there first. So that slides in against the bearing. The seal does have this red sealing on it. I'm always just a little bit paranoid, so I will add a bit of RTV in addition, just to make sure that this does not leak. Doesn't need much. And that will go into the housing. Now ordinarily, I would like to go find something that would seat up against the metal, preferably the outside of the metal here. This is a 1480. There is nothing in my ball joint kit or my socket set or anything else that I own that is big enough to do that. So we're going to do it very gently with a hammer around the perimeter. Kind of just to seat it into the housing. Doing it that way, you will not be able to drive the seal any more than just flush with the housing. I like to put a little bit of RTV around the splines. It just helps make sure that the pinion seals to the yoke on the inside. It's a little bit easier to do onto the splines of the shaft than it is to do it on the interior of the yoke. But it's basically the same idea. It doesn't take much. This is just to make sure that the yoke seals to the, we don't end up with a leak sliding through. Now, on the outside.
Do you smear it around? I like to. That way you don't have a big lip at the end, necessarily.
Cleaning up my gloves. The sticky stuff off.
The oil is over there.
So now we're going to put just a little bit of oil on the perimeter of the yoke to help it slide past the seal.
And again, it doesn't take much. It's just a very little bit.
Just a film is all we need.
Just helps the steel slide on the dry rubber a little easier.
Particularly when it's 29 degrees outside and everything is cold and
yeah, it's almost warm in here.
Almost. Okay.
Oh, and since we're here, why don't you show them what you found on the other yoke, and yet another reason to change out the yoke.
So, on the sealing surface, we've got these slight grooves, and you can actually feel them with your fingernail, even through the glove, right where the seal rides. And that's a wear behavior over time, and that will eventually cause a seal leak. They do sell a repair sleeve that you can slide over that'll help seal that back up again. But in this case, not having those in there means I'll get a better seal. This is a 1410 yoke. This is a 1480. You kind of get a feel for the difference that's in play. It's not a lot bigger across the width, but it is a bit larger diameter on the cap. The other thing that you can see is just the size of the bolt that goes through. One of these, the old one is a strap, the new one is a U-bolt style. But it gives you an idea of the size of the fastener that's actually holding the joint to the yoke. Okay, washer. And because I'm a paranoid person, I'm going to put some Loctite on that. It never hurts to make sure it doesn't come loose. And given the nut has markings on one side and no markings on the other, we're going to go ahead and put the no markings towards the washer.
Yeah, not quite enough.
Yeah, I'm going to look for another bolt. So, the objective is to torque this pinion nut to between 450 and 500 foot-pounds, which is only about 2x what my click-type torque wrenches will do. So we've got this digital torque adapter that is supposed to be good for 600 foot-pounds. It is supposed to tell us what we're doing. The idea, once we've actually got some torque on it, because that's like 11, 12, 13, 14 foot-pounds. It does say for hand use only.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can see already the yoke is
Getting sucked in.
getting seated properly. So yeah.
Okay, so there's 100. And as a curiosity, I would like to check the calibration of this against my torque wrench. We're at 100. If I set my torque wrench to 100, we should have a similar value. So that is my click-type torque wrench at 100 foot-pounds. And a bigger lever. Clearly seating in there.
Yeah, it's
at the point where that clicked, I was reading about 105.
Yeah, so they're close to each other.
Yeah, it's clicking basically right at about 100. So they're close. They're certainly close enough for an application of 400 plus foot-pounds. This is a longer reach than my other is, and this is good for 300. I'm going to go ahead and set this one up to 300.
Okay.
And I'll continue tightening here to the point where I need the breaker. Oh, at about 140 foot-pounds, it suddenly got a lot tighter.
Now, before you tear up your bad shoulder,
Yep.
should we switch?
So I'm seeing about 180 at this point, and yes, I will switch.
Yeah, so we're dealing with an injured shoulder. and so I'm going to take over some of the duties.
Yeah, trip, fall, hurt yourself, have unpleasant conversations with the doctor.
And I don't want April mad at me.
Roy is such an amazing and clever guy, isn't he?
So that was about 275, according to that, when it finally clicked. Okay, so that's the limit of the torque wrench.
So we have this 3/8 drive ratchet, or we bought a 3/4 drive.
3/4 drive ratchet or a 3/4 breaker. They're about the same length. So.
And the handle is
basically the same diameter.
Size. And try the ratchet.
Okay.
I mean, it is a 3/4 drive ratchet. And then
slightly smaller diameter pipe.
it might have been the ratchet.
You think?
Yep, broke the ratchet. So we're discovering the limits of our gear here. That used to be square. And that's what the 1/2-inch drive breaker bar was hanging on to. And it decided it wasn't going to continue holding. So we've got here a really big pipe wrench on the yoke with a long breaker bar, or a long pipe to act as a breaker bar. And I mean, we are so close. And so here we go.
400?
440, 50.
450. So that is the minimum requisite torque for that Dana 80 pinion nut. But we're there, and we're going to call it good.
Yeah, because this was starting to flex a little bit. And
yeah, well, and things are starting to get a little sketchy.
yeah.
So with that, we have the assembly of the gears for the Dana 80 complete. We'll tear this down and reset on the Dana 60. We're almost done, huh?
Say hi, Flash.
All right. Dana 80 for the M715 for the moment is basically done. Our next step is going to be to slide this out under the back end of the truck, put some roller tires on it, and start working on mocking up and welding in the back suspension. But the axle build is done.